Hello hockey fans, and welcome back to another video. Over the NHL's century-long existence, many legends of the game have had to overcome difficult obstacles both on and off the ice before earning their place amongst the league's elite. Whether they were forced to defect from their native country, they suffered a career-threatening injury or illness, or they had to wait several decades to finally get their hands on the Stanley Cup, a number of superstars had to bide their time before earning their place in the league's history books. Though most of these players would go on to win a championship or two during their respective careers, most of them had to go through long periods of struggle and disappointment before they got there. Some may have come close, but not close enough on several different occasions. Some didn't have a strong or consistent supporting cast around them, while others spent their best years playing for bad teams. These challenges forced many stars and future Hall of Famers to dig deep and persevere until they finally achieved their childhood dream. After all, some of the best players in the league today, like Alexander Ovechkin, Steven Stamkos and Alex Pietrangelo, have only recently got their hands on the cup, and they've all been in the league for over a decade now. However, one player went from losing his passion for the game to lifting the greatest trophies the sport has to offer less than a year later. This is the story of Ryan O'Reilly, from lost love to playoff MVP. In order to tell this tale, allow me to take you back to June 27, 2009, when Canadian centre Ryan O'Reilly was taken 33rd overall at the 2009 draft by the Colorado Avalanche, having scored 66 points in 68 games with the OHL's Erie Otters during the 08-09 season. O'Reilly would immediately earn a place on the Avalanche's roster out of training camp for the following 09-10 NHL season, and would quickly develop into a legitimate top 6 scorer for the team. During his first 6 seasons in the league, the second-round pick would post 3 17-goal seasons and 3 50-point seasons, en route to scoring 90 goals and 246 points in 427 games, including a 28-goal, 64-point year in 13-14. Having finished the 14-15 season with 17 goals and 55 points in 82 games, and as he entered the final season of a 2-year, $12 million contract with the team, O'Reilly was about to find himself on the move. On June 26, 2015, it was announced that the Avalanche had traded O'Reilly to the Buffalo Sabres in a deal that sent Nikita Zadorov and JT Compher to Colorado. This meant that after half a decade with the team that drafted him, O'Reilly would be leaving the only NHL team he had ever known and would be moving to Western New York with the aim of continuing his strong play and helping the Sabres become a legitimate playoff contender. Though his numbers would remain impressive, the Canadiens' time in Buffalo would present its fair share of struggles. Immediately after joining the Sabres, O'Reilly was given the royal treatment by his new franchise, as he was quickly named an alternate captain of the team before signing a 7-year, $52.5 million contract extension the next day. Not a bad way to start your tenure with a team, eh folks? As the following 15-16 NHL season got underway, O'Reilly would take to the ice with Buffalo for the very first time and produce one of his best seasons to date. The former second-round pick would score 21 goals and 60 points in 71 games and make his first appearance at the NHL All Star game, while the Sabres would finish the year at 14th place in the Eastern Conference thanks to posting a 35, 36 and 11 record. This might not sound that great on the surface, but considering Buffalo were the worst team in the NHL during the prior season, this performance was a vast improvement. O'Reilly's sophomore year with the Sabres would see a slight step back for both the player and the team, as he notched 20 goals and 55 points in 72 games, while the Sabres finished 15th place in the Eastern Conference thanks to a 33, 37 and 12 record. Despite this notable regression, there was still plenty to be optimistic about in Buffalo. After all, the Sabres had a top 2 centre tandem of Ryan O'Reilly and Jack Eichel. They were ripe with young and talented prospects at seemingly every position, and with the right moves and player progression, their team could become a force to be reckoned with over the coming seasons. Unfortunately though, Buffalo's performance in the following year would be the final straw to break O'Reilly's back. The 17-18 season would see O'Reilly rebound from a somewhat disappointing year prior and produce arguably the best all-round season of his career at the time. Not only would he notch 24 goals and 61 points in 81 games, and surpass Rod Brindamore's NHL record for the most face-off wins in a single season, he would also register just 2 penalty minutes the entire year. Despite these impressive personal accolades, the Sabres as a whole continued to struggle. In fact, they were downright terrible, as Buffalo finished last place in the league standings with a 25, 45 and 12 record. So even though they were expected to turn a corner that season, the Sabres had finished dead last in the league for the 3rd time in 5 years, and had produced one of their worst seasons in franchise history. As Buffalo's season came to its routinely early end in April of 2018, Ryan O'Reilly decided that enough was enough. The Canadian forward had been frustrated with the way his team had performed all year long, and he wanted to get some things off his chest. As the team cleaned out their locker room and the players conducted exit interviews with the media, O'Reilly wasted little time giving his honest opinion of his team's performance that year, stating that the Sabres had adopted a mindset of, quote, being okay with losing. O'Reilly claimed that this mindset had crept into every Sabres game that season, before admitting that the team's struggles had got to him so badly that there were several points during the year where he had started to lose his love of the game. So a guy who had just posted one of the most productive seasons of his career and had set a new league record felt so down and so defeated with the constant losing in Buffalo that he struggled to find his love for hockey. Watching his team lose night in and night out was so soul-destroying for him that he was struggling to find his passion for the game he'd played almost his entire life. That's a pretty damning indictment, but considering the Sabres' performance over the last decade, you can't really argue with his assessment, can you folks? Given the position O'Reilly was in at the time, I can certainly understand why he decided to speak out and say his piece. Sure, throwing the entire organisation you play for under the bus wasn't exactly the classiest or the most gentlemanly thing to do, but the guy had posted 3 straight 55-point seasons, had been a top 2 scorer on the team in each of the past 3 years, and had done everything he could to try and make his team a legitimate competitor in the Eastern Conference. Yet the Sabres somehow got worse every single year. Even with a top 2 centre pairing of Ryan O'Reilly and Jack Eichel, Buffalo sat at the bottom of the league standings. I know I'd be pretty upset if I were him too. As you can imagine, these brutally honest sentiments were not well received by either the Sabres management or their front office staff. In fact, these sound bites would leave such a bitter taste in the Sabres' mouth that the team would decide to move on from their star centre just a few months later. On July 1st, 2018, it was announced that Buffalo had traded O'Reilly to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a huge package of roster players, prospects, and draft picks in return. Whether O'Reilly had requested a trade from the team has neither been confirmed nor denied, but that really didn't matter anymore. O'Reilly had just been given an escape from the Sabres organisation and had joined a legitimate contender looking to get their hands on the first Stanley Cup of their franchise's history. Luckily for O'Reilly, he would win more than just a championship in the coming year. The 18-19 season saw O'Reilly don the blue note of St. Louis for the very first time and look to use his change of scenery to rediscover his passion for the game, produce a strong season for his new team, and return to the postseason for the first time since 2014. Though the Canadian forward would find himself in familiar territory as the Blues sat at the bottom of the league standings heading into New Year 2019, a change to their head coach and their starting netminder would give the Blues a new lease of life, as they went on a 30-10-5 run during the second half of the regular season to finish 5th place in the Western Conference and clinch a place in the 2019 playoffs. Despite this roller coaster ride of a season, O'Reilly wouldn't take long to get comfortable in Missouri, as he became one of the team's most productive players and quickly rediscovered his love of the game thanks to being part of a roster where every player was committed to winning, and winning now. These factors culminated in the Canadian forward producing the best season of his career by far, as he scored 28 goals and 77 points in 82 games to lead his team in scoring by a notable margin. If setting new career highs in goals, assists and points wasn't impressive enough for you though, the Canadian forward would also earn his second trip to the NHL All Star game, as well as the 2019 Frank J. Selke Trophy given to the league's best defensive forward. So not only had O'Reilly put up career-high offensive numbers, he was also named the best forward on the other end of the ice too. Not bad for a guy who had questioned his love of the game only a year ago, eh folks? However, he wasn't done collecting trophies just yet. O'Reilly would relish the opportunity to suit up in his first postseason in half a decade by kicking his game up a gear and helping St. Louis make a deep run in the playoffs. With 4 points in 6 games against the Winnipeg Jets in round 1, and 5 points in 7 games against the Dallas Stars in round 2, O'Reilly had posted 9 points in 13 games midway through the playoffs, and had helped his team make their second trip to the Western Conference Finals in 4 years. With 5 points in 7 games against the San Jose Sharks during said series, O'Reilly had once again been one of the team's most productive forwards, as the St. Louis Blues had defeated all of their Western Conference opponents and had booked their first trip to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1969. Now, if you thought O'Reilly was done there, though, you would be sorely mistaken. As the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins took to the ice for the 2019 Stanley Cup Finals, Ryan O'Reilly knew that he had to play the best hockey of his entire career if he wanted to come away victorious and lift the trophy. Though the Boston Bruins would take a 4-2 win in Game 1 of the series, and O'Reilly would go scoreless with a -1 in almost 20 minutes of ice time, the former second-round draft pick was about to take his game to a level it had never been before. The Canadian forward would go on a 6-game point streak for the rest of the series, posting 5 goals and 9 points with a +5 in that span, as St. Louis defeated Boston in 7 games to clinch the 2019 Stanley Cup. So after several seasons of sitting rock bottom in the league, after watching his Sabres team crash and burn year after year, Ryan O'Reilly and the St. Louis Blues had just been crowned champions of the National Hockey League. As the deciding game came to an end, and with St. Louis ready to lift the cup high above their heads, O'Reilly had one more award to receive. Thanks to scoring 8 goals and 23 points in 26 playoff games, and setting a new Blues franchise record for the most points scored during a single playoff run, Ryan O'Reilly was awarded the 2019 Conn Smythe Trophy, given to the postseason's most valuable player. So just a season after he had watched his team finish rock bottom in the standings, and he had started to question his love of the game, Ryan O'Reilly had just been named the league's most valuable player during the Stanley Cup playoffs. If that's not one of the most impressive rebounds in recent memory, I don't know what is, folks. Can you imagine just how great it must have felt to be Ryan O'Reilly in that moment? To have spent the last 3 seasons in Buffalo playing very well for your team, but it all being for nothing as they sat at the bottom of the standings year in, year out, to being handed the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP, and getting to take a lap with the Stanley Cup. It may have taken longer than he had hoped, but trials like these make the triumph all the sweeter. Following his incredible debut in St. Louis, Ryan O'Reilly continues to suit up for the Blues to this very day, having spent the most recent 2019-2020 season with the team. Though the year was cut short due to the global pandemic, O'Reilly would once again produce impressive numbers for his side, as he potted 12 goals and 61 points in 71 games, was named an NHL All Star for the 2nd straight season, and served as an alternate captain for much of the year due to a long-term injury to Vladimir Tarasenko. Most recently, though, O'Reilly joined St. Louis in the bubble as the Blues had clinched a berth in the 2020 playoffs, but after scoring 11 points in 9 games during both the round-robin stage and the postseason, the defending Stanley Cup champions were unable to win back-to-back titles, as they were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the Vancouver Canucks. Despite this disappointing conclusion to their season, the former Conn Smythe winner has plenty to be excited about over the coming years. After all, at just 29 years of age and with 3 years remaining on his contract, O'Reilly is still in the prime years of his career and has some great hockey left to play before he calls it quits. Given his performance over the last few seasons, it certainly wouldn't surprise me to see Ryan O'Reilly make several more appearances at the NHL All Star game, win a few more trophies to add to his cabinet, and maybe even lift the Stanley Cup again by the time his contract or his career in the league is over. So less than a year after finishing at the bottom of the league standings and having found himself losing his love for the game at several points during the season, Ryan O'Reilly was traded to St. Louis, produced a career-high season in practically every statistical category, was named an NHL All Star for the 2nd time, won the Selke Trophy as the league's best defensive forward, lifted his first Stanley Cup championship, and won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. Now that's what I call one hell of a rebound. And that's the story of Ryan O'Reilly's journey from lost love to playoff MVP. What do you guys think about O'Reilly's 18-19 NHL season? Do you think he should have earned even more awards, or do you think this was simply a match made in heaven for both the player and the team? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Carl Fairbank, Chris Gadsby, Connor B, John Plummin, Jordan Whitehead, Roman from London, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.